Hi everyone, this is KarnaSena. We are a group of few Indians who like to talk about current affairs and making India better. We are not experts on anything. We just talk about current affairs and have conversation rolling and give our perspective. So right now in our podcast, and this is our first podcast, and we have four members. Myself, I'm KarnaBro, and our fellow members of KarnaSena who are DharmaBro, RaviBro, and AnveshBro. We are just bros, just talking as friends about what's happening in India and what our ideas are. And we are not experts, we are not government employees, we are not pro BJP, we are not pro Congress, we are pro India. That's it. And today we're gonna discuss about India and China current bullshit that's happening. Ravi bro, you wanna share anything with your ideas? What's happening right now with India and China?
Yeah, Karnavo, thanks for that introduction. And we have a very good article in KarnaSena that was written by KarnaBro. The article is about India's failed policy historical failed policies, and how we should learn from our history. There are some very good events that are covered in that article, so I'd highly recommend everybody to read that article. But I and Karna bro, I actually had one question while reading the article, and I'm pretty sure everybody, all your readers would definitely have this question too. So, can you elaborate what you mean by Nehru rejecting the Gwadar port? Can you give a little background about it? And because I was always thinking that Gwadar port is in Pakistan, how can Nehru reject that? What's the background behind it?
Yeah, so India got independence in 1947, August 15. It's then the biggest problem in front of then Indian leadership and even the British Empire at that time is how do you divide like all the territories within the global Indian territories? When I say global Indian territories, it means Pakistan, India, Andaman Nicobar, Myanmar, like even Nepal, Tibet, all of them. The biggest problem we had is we had some idiot called Jinnah, who is a religious fanatic who obviously believes, okay, Hindus and Muslims are fundamentally different. Um, so we need our Muslims needs to have our own country. That's the biggest problem. So we have a problem right now to split the country into two parts. India as a majority of Hindu and Pakistan, which Jinnah picked as a name, as a Muslim majority country. The only difference is the secular Indian leaders at that time, who are Gandhi and Nehru and all those people, they decided India will be secular, which means if you're Muslim, you can be with India, but you're fine. Uh, Unlike Pakistan, in Pakistan, Jinnah declared there should be no Hindu alive in Pakistan, and either they should be living as third class citizens or they should be just vacated. This caused a huge, the one of the biggest genocides of Indian history, where millions of people killed, misplaced, kidnapped, like forever stuck, lost their parents and everything. So during that time, there is a thing called we had like 500 something different Indian territories that needs to be assimilated into either India or Pakistan. So Pakistan got easily the Western Punjab, Western Sindh, and um, Baluchistan. So that Baluchistan is an interesting factor. Baluchistan is not, they didn't want to be part of Pakistan. They wanted to be part of India. But Gandhi at that time, who is a secular, this is a different topic, but Gandhi is the controlled opposition. He's not something like uh, he wanted pro India. Like people, when people call Gandhi as father of India, it's actually mis mislabeling him. He's not pro-India. He's not father of India. He's the controlled opposition from Britain. But he decided, okay, we need to make Pakistan a better place because they are our brothers, even though they are on the verge of becoming two different countries. So Bangladesh right now was used to be part of Pakistan called East Pakistan. So all the really, really wealthy ports and wealthy agricultural beneficial lands were part of Pakistan. And Baluchistan, when it was on the up in the air, Gandhi and Jinnah and Nehru, they had consistent meetings with their fellow British generals, and they had multiple meetings over the years, and that's what happened. So Baluchistan was finally Nehru and Gandhi agreed, okay, Baluchistan, let's give to Pakistan. But
Okay,
Gwadar port
and
is a different part. Let me just say this last point. Gwadar port is a different part. Port as a different entity is not part of was not part of Balochistan at that point of time. So Gwadar port, we had an option if we pressed harder. Gwadar port could be used as Indian territory at that point of time, but Nehru, out of goodwill, he rejected Gwadar port, and there's a Gwadar port is also was controlled by Oman, which is a not it's a different country, but it's all about diplomacy and failed diplomacy, and we could have pressed harder and got the Gwadar port as part of Indian territory, just like Andaman Nicobar right now we have. But Nehru, out of goodwill, rejected that so that Pakistan can get advantage of the Gwadar port. So Gwadar port is not part of India in that annexation process.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I also heard many stories about how Balochistan wanted to be part of India, but I mean, Indian leaders back then they were not interested, saying, "Oh, you're basically far away from India. How can you be part of India?" Although Bangladesh was part of Pakistan. So
Right.
yeah, uh,
So
yeah,
you need to thank Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Otherwise,
yeah,
there Hyderabad, which is right now
yeah. There could have
Telangana,
been another Pakistan
so
inside
there would be
India.
a third
Yeah,
Pakistan territory right in the middle of next to Tamil
yeah.
Nadu and Orissa and Karnataka. There would have been a real Pakistan territory as in a
Yeah.
country in the middle of India. Thanks to Vallabhbhai Patel, he ignored Nehru. This is too much to for even his lunatic ideas. That's what
Yeah,
Vallabhbhai
I
Patel
mean,
said. And
it's funny when you say real Pakistan territory inside India because it's kind of Hyderabad is known to be like a mini Pakistan, anyways.
yeah, the good thing
Yeah,
is that back then they didn't press hard enough the Nizam Empire. They wanted
Hmm.
to be independent country within India. So no, a lot of people might not know it, but Hyderabad wasn't part of India in
Yeah,
1947. It's only in
yeah.
1948 there was an army operation
Blue
that
Star.
conducted by Vallabhbhai Patel without notifying Nehru because Nehru would have stopped it. And that's the reason why the Telangana, Hyderabad, which is 80% of Hindus, is part of India right now. So
Well,
today
okay.
the topic is
Let's not
India-China. So
focus on maybe Pakistan because you, in your article also, you have mentioned how Indians were always kept busy with Pakistan. I mean, but the actual threat always has been China. But we, I mean, in Indian psyche, because of the history also, we always had so much negativity for Pakistan. But I mean, all our focus or all our energy should have been on China, in fact, of Pakistan.
when
And
I
let's not,
say when
yeah,
I say
let's
that,
not discuss much about Pakistan, anyways, even now,
right? Yeah,
because
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, just one point. When I say ignore Pakistan, it doesn't mean that we should underestimate Pakistan. Pakistan is really capable. It's a real enemy, but the only point I'm saying is India's biggest enemy is China, not Pakistan. Pakistan is still a considerable enemy, but we should not make a mistake of underestimating Pakistan. It's only that we conveniently ignored, when I say we, I'm talking about the 70 years of Congress government, including even BJP, including diplomats and entire ecosystem of military. ignores China as, hey, China is our friend, like, we can we can solve all our China problems with diplomacy and peace and talks. But that's not the case, which are listed in my article, but we'll discuss more on what's happening with India and China history and what's the reason we are in this place right now in July 2020, still like have no clue of how to deal with China except for banning apps and products, but that's not going to solve anything right now.
Uh,
Hey,
hey guys, this is Anvesh. I'm sorry. I mean, I have a small question here. So so in the article, it says Nepal, like Nepal current government is acting as a puppet to to China, and I just wanted to know why like Nepal is still considered as anti-Indian, or they don't support they don't support India much, uh, rather than since they are having all the freedom of India's resources, and then but they don't really uh, support India. Uh,
right. Yeah, it's a great question. So India and Nepal share a special kind of relationship that no other countries in the entire world enjoys. When I say enjoys, Nepal enjoys the relationship better than India. So first thing is open border, which means you can carry a driver's license in Nepal and just come to India and work. Work is a big thing. In EU, yes, you can go from Germany to neighboring countries, but in order to work, you need to produce special kind of requirements and you need to have qualified for certain requirements. That's not how with Nepal and India. Nepalese can just enter the Indian border showing their Nepali driver's license and start working potentially forever. And no one's going to ask them to go back or anything like that. And there was been like that forever. And Nepali is historically a Hindu nation. When I mean like majority of Nepalis are Hindus. And there used to be a Hindu-led government dynasty that was dismantled. And what is a replacement? It usually should be democracy, right? No, it's not democracy. It's right now is a communist party. So,
Well, there used to be democracy, but I mean, in recent elections, basically the
right,
Communist Party has won.
right.
So what I think what happened is when in India, uh, I mean, we all know that Nepal it was the only Hindu country. Now they have basically gone. I mean, they have gone to be secular. They are not no more recognizing themselves to be only Hindu country. By the way, so what happened, I think, was when India was being ruled by essentially anti-Hindu governments, um, Nepal was a Hindu country, and
So it is,
the government to
the
government relations, I feel, were not good
right.
at that.
So the
Yeah.
difference is it is not anti-Hindu, to be honest, but it's anti-India. That's a difference. These are
Yeah,
major reasons. So in the entire world, there are three major country organizations structures happening. Majority are capitalist right now, and capitalist and democracies go in hand, like US, India, post 1990s India right now is a capitalist democracy. And communism. Communism is, you can take an example of North Korea, China, and now Nepal. So it all started with China sometime in past decades decided, yeah, let's encircle India because India could be potential rival. Potential rival. It's not equal to China, but it can potentially rival China. So their strategy has been contain India before India can reach that level that can counter China. So what's the best way to do? Pakistan is already China's best friend. So other countries, Nepal used to be India's ally because of all the open borders and uh, many number of things that infrastructure projects India did for Nepal, etc., including security for in past decades. So China's plan is take over Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, strategic, and even Myanmar, appeal them to be part of China's group in in the strategy of One Belt, One Road initiative. So Sri Lanka was Rajapaksa, who was anti-India and pro-China before past election. He did that, and One Belt, One Road is a project China started where they give loans and they only employ China companies, and the loans were given by Chinese banks in order to construct infrastructure, roads, dams, electricity, internet using UI in different countries. So the other countries only get the debt in return. Yes, infrastructure, but you can have the best infrastructure in the world, but if you don't have trade, if you don't have companies in your country, it means jack shit because there's no use of infrastructure at that point. So the world's emptiest airport, international airport right now is in Sri Lanka, which were built on Chinese loans. And Sri Lanka right now forced to give up Hambantota port to China for 99-year lease. So Nepal, unfortunate thing about Nepal is it did fall just like Sri Lanka, except at least Sri Lanka right now realized its mistake and engaging India more and Japan more in Sri Lanka infrastructure. Nepal, there's this person called KP Oli. His real name is KP Sharma Oli, but he wants to omit Sharma just to just to make it better.
Communist.
So the biggest problem with Nepal is the media. So number one thing about China is one thing China does it better is the propaganda. Because in China, if you just say you go in China, Beijing town city, and just say Xi Jinping is an idiot, you'll be arrested and no one will ever hear from you again. This kind of level of propaganda China enforces. So right now, Nepal, so there is an earthquake in 2015 in Nepal, in Himalayas, a huge earthquake. India contributed so much by the cleaning up and saving Nepali citizens and even constructing damaged roads and infrastructure. And what's the India got in return of all the effort that India did on its own? There's no strategic benefit by doing that. So entire Nepali media is about go back India, go back India. And the reason given was Indian media is exaggerating how India is helping Nepal. So you can see like how the seeds were sown, how anti-Indian propaganda being propagated entire Nepal. Right now the situation is Nepal hates India more than they hate China. They think they are an independent country, but unfortunately they are in part of China. Right now, KP Oli is in kind of a really, really disaster situation where his own party members are asking him to step down. It took only the Chinese ambassador to conduct meetings with all other rivals and bringing it down. So right now, India should reconsider the Nepali preferential treatment really strongly because this is what happens when you have open borders. What's stopping KP Oli agreeing to Chinese spies enter India with just driver's license, or even Pakistani citizens who are given Nepali driver's license and enter India? Whatever it is, India should close open borders. It's not bad step. No country has it. You just given it for Nepal out of your goodwill. Stop that goodwill. Stop that morality argument and treat Nepal as any other different country.
Yeah. So, uh, so I mean that's a very good like a strategic move that India should take because they cannot enter our borders and like utilize our economy to like to improve theirs and like destruct our economic conditions. So yeah.
Right. So one thing I would like to add is it's not about open borders. Open borders were happening for past few decades. It's not an issue because Nepal was not in China's camp entirely. But just remember, when Chinese PLA army entered Indian territories, just 2 days before that, there was a Nepali Assembly's new topic include Lipu Lake as part of Nepal in the maps. And because of the road construction India was doing for past decade. So for 10 years, that road construction has happening. So Nepal didn't make this as a huge issue for past 10 years, but took exact that moment of that time in May 2020. Obviously, it's a collusion between China and Nepal government. Obviously, China is a no-brainer. Like China's Chinese diplomats and Chinese ambassadors forced Nepal government, hey, we're gonna intrude into India's territories, and this is our part of land, and you are in my side, and just start a new border dispute, make it look like India is a bad person. It's not Pakistan is not a bad person, China is not a bad person. So if you show the world that India and Nepal has a border dispute, everyone would make believe, hey, India is a bad person because India has a border dispute with three countries. But the biggest backstabbing by Nepal to India is colluding with China when realistically the China and Nepal trade is not a realistic scenario until next 3 decades because of how Himalayas and terrain difficulties. Unfortunately for Nepal, I'm talking on behalf of Nepal right now. Nepal is a landlocked country. There's no trade except for Himalayas on the north and India on the south. If India decides to stop all the oil and food, Nepal would go bankrupt and it will be in chaos in a couple of weeks. I'm not saying that
Yeah, there are.
Nepal should be a
I
slave
have
of
seen
India, but
some.
respect the relationship, not go into the enemy of India and try to damage India. Like India is being your friend, but you backstabbing India doesn't mean it's gonna go well for Nepal at this point.
Yeah, there are some demands in India raising up. I've seen that India should stop um, entertaining Nepal using Indian ports,
Yeah,
or maybe tax them or like charge them more than what
right.
India does.
I mean, to be honest, Nepal is not India's biggest problem. It's just a annoy. Nepal is like
It's an
being an
annoyance.
annoying
Yeah,
itch. That's it. It's
yeah.
just an annoyance. But
And
the
then
real
and then
big problem is with China.
other thing that I have read is basically even Nepal has border disputes with China. That's and they don't care about that, but rather
So
they are interested in border disputes with. I
so
mean, with
technically
the
there
border
is no
dispute that doesn't exist
right.
between India and Nepal.
Right. Technically, there is no border disputes with Nepal and China. China just occupies Nepal's territory, and Nepal
Yeah,
has no
so
choice to keep calm.
they don't have any choice. And
Yeah,
the opposition party, I mean, that is why they're opposing Oli because he is not even standing up for it.
yeah. To be honest, like we should not waste our time on Nepal in this podcast. Let's focus on China more. Nepal, I hope they realize India is being their friend, but Indian government so far is doing good job not giving legitimacy with KP Oli claims. But I'm just giving a scenario why how China is using India's long-term friends to turn against India. That's what the big thing right now is. China was able to squash that 60 years of India and Nepal's friendship and turn Nepal into anti-India. Nepal is not India's concerns, and it's like 99 problems. Nepal ain't one.
Hey, KarnaBro, this is Dharma. Just want to know the Nehru policy on Tibet. Did he really gifted the Tibet to China? Just want to know on that.
So obviously Tibet is an independent country. So when we say Nehru gifted Tibet, it's just a metaphor.
Hmm.
The real underlying problem is um, India at that point of time in 1947 to 1955, around that time period,
Hmm.
Indian military has a greater military capability compared to China. The reason behind is Indian soldiers in hundreds of thousands participated in World War II, so they have
Okay.
combat experience and they are battle tested. And
Oh.
also there was a 1947 Pakistan and Indian War where hundreds of thousands of Indian soldiers were participated. So at that point of time, the Chinese army. So when we talk about China, I just need to insert a quick historical perspective, which is when we talk about China, China is actually two countries at this moment right now. Taiwan is called Republic of China. The current China
Mm-hmm.
is called People's Republic of China.
Okay.
There are two different Chinese governments operating in the world right now. They both claim about China. For the mainstream, right now, the mainland China is in the occupation of or administrated by People's Republic of China. Let me expand that on a little bit. In World War II, there's a Axis powers, which is Germany, Italy, and Japan, and then rest of the US, Soviet, France, UK, even including British Indian soldiers fighting against each other. So at that point of time during World War II, Japan was occupying China, majority of China as a whole, just like how British was in occupation of Indian territories at that point of time. So Republic of China launched a war against Japan in order to kick the Japan out of China and claim that China as a whole. They did it. It's a long war. It's a really, really tiresome war. So at the end of the time, Germany was defeated. So is Italy. So is Japan. So Japan went back. And by the time Republic of China forces, military was really exhausted, tired out, and but they are rightful rulers of China at that point of time. At the same time, there is a domestic movement called Communist Party of China emerged, and they launched another war against Republic of China. So Republic of China spent majority of its forces, majority of time, majority of its funds against Japan. So at this point of time, they are weak. So Communist Party of China, with the help of People's Liberation Army (PLA), was able to defeat Republic of China. So the entire Chinese government, in form of Republic of China, went to an exile in an island called Taiwan.
Oh.
So now Chinese Communist Party and PLA occupied China and they formed the government. To this day, the same thing's happening. So right now, when you talk about China, there are two Chinas, one Taiwan and one mainland China, which is Communist Party of China right now. Perspective of Communist Party of China right now is Taiwan is part of China, so it's just like we just need to reoccupy Taiwan and make it a part of mainland China as a whole.
And one more thing is PLA is not even a military force of China. It's basically a military force of Communist Party.
Right,
So their main interest is to serve Communist Party, but not the people of China.
right. Imagine there is an army for Indian National Congress. So that's what PLA is for Chinese Communist Party. It's not Chinese army. So technically, it's not even Chinese National Army. It's just a single party's army. And in China, there's only one
Like,
party right now.
yeah, like in India's case, imagine if Maoists become the army of India. What would
Yeah.
it's like that.
So so regarding Tibet, so Tibet was not part of China during that period of time. Tibet is an independent country, and Tibet has Buddhism, that is a Sanatani version of Tibetan Buddhism, that is more closer to India than China ever was. And even Tibetan Buddhist missions were operated by Indian government at that point of time in Lhasa, Tibetan capital Lhasa, and all the Tibetan Buddhist missions were in control of Indian government. Even the trade, majority of trade and any foreign relations was going through India. There are some criticism, but with Tibetan government at that time, but it's nothing compared to what happened next. So Nehru is the now leader of India, and he wanted to appease to China no matter what. He wanted to form an India-China brotherhood. But like Vallabhbhai Patel warned Nehru, we treat China as our friend, but China doesn't treat India as a friend. You're just being used as a tool. But Nehru, being an
Yes.
arrogant idiot, he
Mhm.
just want to appease China no matter what. So at that point of time, in 1950, Chinese PLA army invaded Tibet. Tibetan Buddhism is fundamental thing is about non-violence, peace. So mostly there's not a major military force that can counter China. At that point of history, Indian army is more powerful than Chinese PLA army because Chinese PLA army never fought any major wars, any world wars, but Indian army soldiers were in part of Kashmir War in World War II, and the ecosystem of British generals are even higher at that point of time. If India wanted, they could have just flushed the entire Chinese army relatively easily and even stopped occupation of Tibet at that point of time. It was a different conversation whether Tibet to become part of India or Tibet to become independent country. But the number one strategic benefit for India is Tibet acts as a buffer. So China, we don't share the borders with China ever again. So there's no border between India and China at that point of time. But when you give up Tibet, China is now your neighbor. China is no country in this entire world wants China to be their neighbor for obvious reasons. So that's the stupidity and grave blunder of Nehru. In order to appease China, he let he agreed to China's intentions to occupy Tibet, so much so that Chinese government was confused and shocked. Why would India let us just take over Tibet just like that with no repercussions or any backlash? So they sent the same message multiple times, confirming, okay, India, you're okay, you can do that. The biggest problem is the same issue we are facing right now, the corrupted diplomat. Then corrupted diplomat, Chinese ambassador to India, and Indian ambassador to China, including Nehru, all of they're just not even pro-India at that point in time. They're pro-China more than pro-India at that point of time. That's how crazy the diplomacy at that time working for. And international community, including UN, they're just waiting for India to, hey, take lead. We already have our own problems. You are a democratic country. At that point, Nehru chose non-alignment, which is the stupidest, the worst mistake any country leader did any time. Because it's not true non-alignment when you're part of Soviet Union's bloc. So you're non-alignment, you're saying that, but you're part of Soviet Union. So there's no strategic benefit. And India could have chosen to take just raise the issue of Tibet in UN, and international countries would have imposed some kind of sanctions or some kind of limitations on China's occupation. Nehru, who didn't waste a single day bringing up Kashmir issue in UN, he never brought Tibetan issue in UN. So it's like you're just letting your house be robbed by some roadside thief, and China successfully killed hundreds of thousands of peaceful Buddhists, and Dalai Lama exiled to India, and the current status quo still exists. So yes, even right now, India's one of the options India has is declare Tibetan all the past agreements are null. Just how China does that to India all the time. China just come in to violate the LSE norms according to agreements, and they just say, yeah, we don't agree to the agreement. Just like that, India can do that right now. Say, hey, what a 2003 agreement and 1970s agreements is not is not valid anymore. So Tibet is an independent country. You're currently it's a disputed territory. India could say that, but India doesn't do that right now, which we'll discuss later in future.
We need to also look at how China occupied Tibet. What was the strategy there? So what they did was similar to what they're doing now with Pakistan or with Nepal. I mean, the whole strategy of China actually started from Tibet. Tibet was the
But
first
there are
country where
different
China actually
strategies.
implemented. Hmm?
There are different strategies. Tibet didn't have an army, so China just came in and just
No,
okay,
but
this belongs to China right now.
so one thing I wanted to mention here, basically, how we should understand how basically China was able to occupy Tibet, right? Whatever the strategy that China has right now, I mean, whatever strategy it is implementing in other countries, the first country that China did that was for Tibet. So what it is doing for, I mean, how it is trying to occupy Hong Kong or how it is trying to occupy Taiwan, or Sri Lanka or Pakistan, all that actually the first test case is Tibet. If we look at how China occupied Tibet, we will know how it is playing in other countries also. So what it did was it first came to Tibet. It said, "Oh, we are neighbors now. We should be friendly neighbors." This is after Communist Party has taken over China, right?
Right.
They came to Tibet and they said, "Oh, we have to become friendly neighbors, and we will basically give you a loan, and we will help you build infrastructure, roads, and all that." And Tibetans basically welcomed it. They said, "Oh, just like how we have Hindi Chini Bye Bye," they kind of use that emotional things with Tibet also. And then Tibetan people were actually celebrating that China being a friendly neighbor, or they're coming and helping us and all that. And China did invest in their infrastructure. They built the roads and all that. But after a few years, they use the exact same roads to bring in tanks, bring in army, bring in other military equipment to occupy Tibet, and they occupied the Tibet.
Right.
And India being the neighbor, I mean, India should have actually raised that issue in every world forum, because I mean, your neighbor country is being occupied by some other force, and that force can eventually come to India as well, which is actually happening right now, right? So, but our leaders never had that far thought, and I mean, especially the first leader, I mean, he never had that far thought, and he never considered the thing to be an issue at all. Or maybe he was colluding too. I mean, we don't know that.
Yeah, the biggest problem with India's failure in this part is when the occupation of Chinese towards Tibet is apparent, even when Chinese proclaiming that Tibet is part of China right now, India didn't protest. And world countries have their own problems, and at that point of time, the UN's stance is India, you're a new country, supposed to be a responsible country, so we are looking towards you to take the lead and proclaim China is occupying Tibet, and it shouldn't be so. India kept quiet at that point of time because of Nehru's appeasements towards China. So apart from that, what you're saying is true. Like the China's playbook is not anything new. That's what British India did. East India Company came to India not as an occupying force, but as a company, a private company establishing business and protecting their assets. Same thing happened in South Africa, same thing happened in Hong Kong, same thing happening in any British colonies. It's not China is not inventing any new rule book. They're just following existing rule book. Pretend that you're just helping the country by starting the business and trade routes, infrastructure development with loans of the Chinese favor. And just like how Sri Lanka had to give up Hambantota port,
Yeah, and then
they're doing
making
right
them
now
call.
is
I mean,
the
recently there are protests in Pakistan also against Chinese and against Chinese companies and their investments and all that. But the government and the army there, obviously, they all they want is money. And one thing China makes proper use is corruption. I mean, one there is one. The biggest fact is that China itself is a big corrupted nation,
I
corrupted
mean,
power.
China
They
uses
use corruption
any
in
factor,
other.
any factor. If it's corruption, it's corruption. If it's woman, honey trap. If it's multiple, their entire thing is get it done no matter what.
And looks like there are reports saying China used honey trap in Nepal for Oli. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean they use all the techniques. All they want is basically land grabbing or like you know.
yeah. The good thing is like we don't know if this is going to be successful. CPEC, we don't know if it's going to be successful because you can build the greatest infrastructure in a country, but if you don't have trade happening, what is that infrastructure being used for? Like, but you still bogged down by the loans, interest rates,
No, but why
and
why would China care about it? It's Pakistan who has to think about it, right? Why would China think about it?
yeah,
Now let's
it,
say now let's say I want to build a a big I don't know. I mean, in India, I don't see a good example. But let's say I build a big economic corridor between Mumbai and Delhi.
mhm.
I mean, it is on India to think about if that project is worth it, if India is going to make that money or not, and things like that, right? I mean, it's not China's problem.
Yeah. India did
So
finish a
ultimately,
road
what's
project
happening is,
similar to CPEC, which is
yeah,
like connecting Delhi, Mumbai, I think Bangalore, and Kolkata. It's like quadrilateral national
yeah,
road. But it is the good thing about it is done by Indian government, it is done by Indian company, and whatever happens, if it's going to be failure or success, it's going to contain within India. No other external country can
and
impose anything on
it
India
is
at the
done
point
by
of time.
Indian government taking into consideration the India's rise in the need or the demand, right?
Right.
But here in Pakistan, what's happening is an external country is coming and making that road, and then eventually what is going to happen is Pakistan will not be able to pay back the debt, and then already, I mean, there are untold reports, I mean, unofficial reports that already China is controlling Pakistan pretty much.
Yeah.
They're controlling Pakistan's army too, you know. So, and another thing is they're not just controlling Pakistan's army, the unofficial, this is unofficial secrets kind of.
Right.
They're not just controlling Pakistan army, uh, they are actually uh, giving arms and ammunitions to Myanmar's rebel groups.
Yeah.
They actually, there is a report saying they actually gave a helicopter to Myanmar rebel groups.
Right.
So the thing that India always feels proud, or India always, I mean, I've seen this in so many news reports and like news analysis that, oh, Indian army has such great experience in war and fighting and all that, and Chinese army doesn't. But then China doesn't use its army. China will not use its army. That is why they are basically giving arms and ammunitions to Myanmar rebels, because they are used in fighting. I mean, they have
Right.
experience in fighting, and China honestly doesn't even care about their lives. And then
Right.
that is why they're influencing Pakistan's army, because Pakistan's army obviously is an army which fights. I mean, at least they've fought few wars.
Right.
So they don't right now. They, I mean, it looks like they will not use PLA at all. They will use these armies to fight against India, and that is why you have seen the recent report of Myanmar's leader, who is she?
Right.
She basically came and she met Prime Minister Modi,
So
and then so all this is being done by China, and it's, I mean, the next attack on India will not happen through China. It will happen through Pakistan or Myanmar, which India is not even prepared for, or maybe even Nepal.
let me give just the military statistics or capability, not statistics, because statistics can be wrong. In 1947, Indian military capability is higher than China because Indian army is just returned back from World War II, and Subhash Chandra Bose. Indian National Army is a huge numbers that are now fighting for India. Military capability is different from your statistics. Number of aircrafts, number of army men, number of soldiers, number of ships, number of anything. It doesn't matter. Military capability means you're able to have achieved that synergy. Synergy is, I think I copied this from someone. Synergy basically, military synergy basically means this: 2 plus 2 under normal circumstances is 4. But when military synergy means 2 into 2 is going to be 25 because of military synergy. How all the forces combine working as a harmony exhibit a number of amount of pressure against the enemy state who's fighting with you. The biggest problem right now with India is uh, for past 2 decades, Indian army is only focusing on Pakistan in Jammu Kashmir, neglecting Navy, Air Force. So past before 1960s, there are three domains of warfare: Navy, Army, and Air Force. Army is the ground troops, Air Force is the aircraft and all the radar technology, and Navy is sea domain. But right now, that's not the only thing. US just launched Space Force a couple of years ago. Now, space is the domain. Internet, when we talk about internet, it's called cyber. So, cyber warfare is a domain. Like, if you can knock off all the websites and all the information between the military, that's essentially cyber warfare. If you are able to hack into, let's say, I don't know, a military general's computer, as part of cyber warfare. You're getting all the information how the troops are moving on the ground or in the air force. And there's another warfare called electromagnetic spectrum, which means you're able to knock off any communication between a flight, an aircraft, to your control center. It's a different topic, but essentially, this is a really important that India already experienced a setback. Remember when Abhinandan was captured in last year's India-Pakistan episode?
Yeah. Yes.
The reason is there are reliable reports that suggest that Abhinandan's aircraft wasn't able to communicate with the Indian control center. So Abhinandan didn't even know, like, where is he going, and his entire communication is blocked. But at the same time, China, remember, China and Pakistan is essentially the same technology. They have the same JF-17s, they have same nuclear technology, they have same communications, they have same warfare development. Pakistan exclusively right now buys only from China, almost. So China provided that technology, electromagnetic spectrum technology, to Pakistan. So Pakistan essentially right now at that point of time most likely could have been Abhinandan sending some messages. They're now reaching Indian control center, but Pakistan was able to read what Abhinandan is sending. So when Abhinandan sends, I'm just giving a scenario. Hey, I'm going to 35 degrees from this spectrum, 25 miles on the route. I'm going to take a turn. All Pakistan needs to do is just point their radar at that location and just shoot a missile at the exact time. Abhinandan's aircraft could have been gone at that point of time. And that's what happens. The problem is our Indian army leadership, the generals, the ex-generals, the think tanks are so corrupted and so incompetent. What they were 20 years ago is resulting of this. Like I said, it's a different topic. The biggest problem is now whatever Indian army was superior military capability 90% is not true right now anymore. Indian military capability is not even superior to Pakistan, to be honest, because they have Chinese technology that they can leverage. There needs to be a severe reform of Indian military capability, reform the military threat Assessments. You need to identify who is your biggest threat. Right now, in entire Indian army establishment, the biggest threat is
Well,
from Kashmir.
but that's what Modi did, right? I mean, as soon as he came, first thing Modi did was, um, I mean, improve the military capability of India. He started procuring, he started ordering some military equipment and things like that. And you remember, like A.K. Anthony on in 2013 or sometime when some reporter was asking him about the Rafale, he said India doesn't have the money to buy Rafale. I mean,
Right.
imagine saying that. Like India, I mean, we were trying to compete China, and we don't have money to like buy a damn like Rafale. Like that's so stupid.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Congress brought India like down to. I mean, that was the level.
So yes, you're right. From my whatever from my research, and it looks like Congress, Indian National Congress Party acts as much as anti-Indian that no other country's party behaves. So yes, Modi is the best bet we have right now. The biggest problem right now is Modi is the only Prime Minister of India. He still needs to make decisions based on assessments of his military generals and think tanks and Ministry of Defense, Ministry of External Affairs, and ambassadors, diplomats. It's still the source of Modi. The best thing Modi did after all this 70 years is uh, remember, for any war, in order to win war is different from what kind of equipment do you have. Winning war is can be essentially drawn down to how long you can last the war, how long you can be okay with number of ammo you have, number of amount of oil you have, amount of energy you have. Indian for past 7 decades, Indian ammo manufacturing is only one source. It's called OFB, Ordnance Factory Board, which is as corrupt as it can get. Imagine, let's say you want to buy a SIM card for your phone. You bought a phone, you want just a number, and you want to contact your relatives and friends. You can go to Airtel, you can go to Geo, you can go to Vodafone, you can go to BSNL. BSNL is a government operator. But most of, if you have a choice, you don't go to BSNL, but you go to Airtel or Geo, most likely Geo. Imagine you're part of Indian Army and your segment is run out of ammunition. Your guns don't have bullets. You need to place an order. Until 3 years ago, the only rule is you place order through only one company. If they provide, take it, or sorry, it's your bad luck. And that company is called OFB. So OFB is the only monopoly of supplying ammunition to Indian Army. It doesn't matter if you have 300,000 artillery guns, 300,000 guns. If you don't have ammunition, they're just maybe a scrap. So OFB, we
Hey,
put
KarnaBro.
another article. Yeah,
Yeah. On that note, I would basically encourage everybody to read our article in KarnaSena, where we have clearly detailed on the ordnance factory and how it sabotaged Shastri during the war and all that information.
yeah.
You know,
Thanks.
yeah.
That's what I was
Instead
gonna
of
say.
I mean, let's not deviate from our actual topic. Um, I mean, in that article, we clearly mention how it is completely taken over by communists, and then how the ordnance factory, in fact, used to send weapons and arm the Maoists instead of Indian army.
Yeah,
So I mean, yeah, I mean, we should basically encourage everybody to read that article.
right,
So let's
right,
not deviate though from
right.
our current.
Just a couple of points. There's a Communist Party is banned in United States in 1954 Act. In Pakistan, Communist Party is banned in Pakistan. Only a major country in the entire world right now is in India, where Communist Party is not banned. Not only they're banned, but they are exempt from many of the investigations. They can do whatever they want. Imagine if Pakistan is the like kind of country that we know Pakistan as, banned Communist Party, and United States, which is a democratic capitalistic society you can get, they banned Communist Party. In China, there is a Communist Party, but guess what? If you start a Communist Party 2, version 2, you'll be killed and your organs will be harvested while you're alive because anesthesia cost money. Only India, a major power in the entire world, that allows Communist Party. A lot of people in Western spectrum misunderstand what is left in India. In United States, the left is probably Bernie Sanders or I don't know AOC, but in India, it's actually Communist Party of India. There's actually a Communist Party. You never hear Communist Party of the United States. You'll never hear Communist Party of Pakistan because they're banned. They get killed and they get jailed if you proclaim you're communist. Just so you know, like just a just a
But
point.
I think we don't have to. Do you think we have to do like that in India? Because already people are showing the door for them. Where is
So
Communist Party? I mean, it's only left in Kerala. I don't think with this gold scam. I don't think even
so
they'll be there.
so why do you think there is a reason why Pakistan had to ban Communist Party? The problem with Communist Party is, in a way, Communist Party of India. If you look at the Sitaram Yechuri interview a couple of days ago, we might need to discuss sometime later. But he basically said what China is doing to Uyghur Muslims is not bad. They're just doing. Basically, what I'm saying is there's no country in the entire world it can be as undeveloped as third country as Africa. Kenya is in war with South Africa at that point of. If someone from Kenya is supporting South African government, no one in Kenya would tolerate it. In India, right now we have India and China standoff going on. We have Communist Party supporting Chinese Communist Party, then Indian government is still allowed. I'm not saying it should be banned, but no, you know what? I'll change. It should be banned because we don't have to fight two wars at the same time. Internal anti-Indian forces who are supported by China and China itself. So I should say India should take two metrics. US banned Communist Party, Pakistan banned Communist Party. Why should not India? India should ban Communist
Well,
Party as of right now.
KarnaBro, I mean, India actually democratically banned Communist Party. I mean, we as people have done very good job in banning Communist Party, but then who is stopping them from being Congress? You know how Congress and Chinese Communist Party already have a MOU, So essentially, Congress, I mean, and we all know Congress and Communist Party are in alliance from long time, from Indira Gandhi's time. So, I mean, even if you ban Communist Party, it's basically just a namesake, you know, because
But
all
but
these, if you see all these communists like Rajdeep Sardesai or like Swara Bhaskar and all these like commies, they anyways, I mean, hands down, they support Congress Party. You know.
it's a great point you
Yeah,
discussed
so
that. Yes,
there's no point in doing that. We have to just keep exposing them, and they are getting exposed with time. So I wouldn't worry much about them because I mean, with these Delhi riots too, I mean, they are actually getting exposed and they're getting arrested left and right for whatever illegal things they have done and they are doing. So
right. Yeah,
because
you
anyways, I
you made
mean,
a great point.
why would we want to ban the party because they are doing illegal things, and
Right,
when we can like target individual people who are doing illegal things,
right.
why do we need to like do something with it?
Yeah.
But
I
anyways, uh, I mean that brings me to I wanted to ask this question on we what you think about the MOU between Congress and CCP. That's
yes.
like and the whole Rajiv Gandhi Foundation thing, and why now we know why Congress during Congress era the trade I mean the trade between India and China, it was, I mean, so imbalanced, and why so many companies, I mean, Indian startups or Indian companies were never encouraged, or there were so many pressures by the government, and I mean, there was never an encouragement for Indian companies or Indian startups.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like Indian democracy rejected Communist Party. Basically, they are reduced to I don't even know why they're a national party at this point. But keeping that aside, I just want to bring up a fair argument from my perspective. So the problem with Communist Party is not because of its number of MLAs or MPs in the government. The problem with that as a societal political force that get pretty much unlimited funding from China and other communist nations. Let's say you're in the state of Telangana, pretty much Communist Party is non-existent, and the whatever the government in Telangana right now tries to bring in a company to invest in Telangana. So immediately you will see 35 cases registered in Telangana's High Court, Telangana's local court, with 305 lawyers who are getting paid from anonymous resources, including NGOs. I would bet it would come from China mostly. So it doesn't matter. Then they have zero MLAs, they have zero MPs, but they
Yeah, but
could
they can
delay the
still do
project
it.
by 25 years.
They can still do it via Congress too, right? I mean, you don't.
Right.
They don't have to be communists.
For the same
I mean,
reason,
what I'm saying is basically Congress can become Communist Congress of India. You know.
yeah, but if they want to win any national party, even Congress, I would say, is not that bad as compared to Communist Party of India. For the same reason.
Well, no, I mean they're doing all anti-national things. I mean, all this Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. I mean, it looks like they're doing anti-national things from whatever news we are seeing, right?
So it's just
Um,
like Congress and Communist Party is like two things. Like they're
yeah,
both bad.
they're synonymous.
But my point is, Communist Party with this is like let's say there's Hizbul Mujahideen. This is a terrorist organization. It is banned in India. But you can bring up the same argument. Oh, we don't have to ban Hizbul Mujahideen. If the people don't like it, they would not get any MLAs and MPs. But the biggest problem is India would get damaged so bad, so extent that you don't even have any benefit like not banning them. Why would the same argument? Why would US ban Communist Party? Why would Pakistan? Why would Pakistan ban Communist Party? There's a legitimate reasons. There's legitimate stuff. Many democratic countries, many developed countries don't tolerate communism because of obvious reasons. My only argument is just blindly copy what either US does or either Pakistan does. Your mortal enemy. Why would Pakistan ban Communist Party? It's not all about number of MLAs and number of MPs. It's the what they do being behind. Uh, Imagine Sitaram Yechuri cannot go to China and say India is the best country, and he will never get out of China if he said that. Sitaram Yechuri can say that right now. Modi is a bad person. That's fine. It's freedom of speech. I don't care about what he does in the public. My biggest concern is what he's doing in the behind with all the unlimited funding from China.
Okay, we'll stop this topic on this on local topic, and let's move on to the China topic.
So what do I mean, I was actually thinking why India is like completely offensive against China right now at this point. Um, but why isn't India doing anything? I mean, like having any good relations with Taiwan or why isn't India using Tibet card, or why isn't India doing something about Hong Kong? At least like give a statement about Hong Kong. I mean, it looks like India is the only country that hasn't at least issued a statement on Hong Kong. That's and there is how can we be so proud of being in, I mean, world's largest democracy when we are not standing for people who want democracy? I mean, they are fighting to have democracy in their city, and the world's largest democracy is just not talking about it.
See, I think this is the right time to get freedom to debate at least now, because all the world, larger economies are now supporting to India. So now this is the right time to go and occupy, like you know Tibet.
So occupying Tibet is, I don't think, is a realistic scenario that at this point. The like what we said, Indian military capability is not at that point right now because of corruption, because of
No, I mean,
uh,
even if the Indian military capability was there, I mean, that's not something that India would want to do at this time. I mean, if we want to do something about Tibet, we only can be able to do when I think China collapses. You know,
so
once like Soviet Union, if China collapses, then
right.
only. But then
I
we,
think it's basically I think it's going to happen soon,
yeah,
probably.
it looks like it should happen
r-
soon. But
right.
then, I mean, we are just being hopeful. But then the other thing that I was thinking, yeah, I mean, this is what I was actually, I was gonna bring up this topic when we were discussing, I mean, Nepal and things. But why? I mean, right now, China has problem with three countries primarily. I mean, if you look at it, majorly they have problem with three countries. One is United States, one is Japan, and the one is India. So United States and Japan, they don't share land border with um, China. So United States, first of all, I mean, like they are like miles away, right, east and west. So they don't even have any border or anything. But India is the only country that is sharing border with China, and I feel India is in such a peculiar or such a bad geography. I think. I mean, in regards to China, I mean, so it for some reason feels to me like um, you know how World War II started when Hitler went and like started his war on Poland and he started occupying Poland. So I know India is not as weak as Poland back then, but I think China looks at India like that, where I mean, because we have shared border, they want to first deal with India,
Yeah.
and that
So
they were actually successfully able to do it when Congress party was there with our internal corruption and buying out the leaders and things like that. But right now they are not able to do it with BJP because of the nationalistic feeling. So I think that is why they are actually doing all this.
so in my opinion, India is not doing enough to counter China. First thing is Taiwan is actually a really important strategic alliance because Apple is one of the world's biggest companies in market cap. The entire manufacturing of Apple happens through Foxconn. Foxconn is not a Chinese company, it's a Taiwanese company. Taiwanese companies that established some factories in China, which is now doing it in India, but it's primarily a Taiwanese company. Apple's chips in iPhone, you have A12, A14, A13 Bionic, all the chips, including the future MacBook Pro CPUs, that will be manufactured by one company called Taiwan Semiconductor, TMSC. It's all about Taiwan for major strategic important stuff, but India doesn't even recognize Taiwan as a strategic diplomatic entity. All comes back to the same Chinese appeasement that happened in Nehru's Menon. But remember, when you're a new diplomat, you have to learn from your previous diplomat. So all these previous diplomat are saying the same thing. Hey, China is our boss. Don't offend China. China is good. And it's the same bullshit that's happening to this day. There's nothing. Okay, so imagine Taiwan has Republic of China, which are anti-communist party of China, but Taiwan is able to establish Foxconn was able to establish factories in China mainland, but India took this long even to have formal communication. So Taiwan is our best bet countering China for the main reason no one knows about China more than Taiwan. That's their fundamental existential threat. So they know more about China than we do.
Yeah. So, what is the next existential threat to China after Taiwan? I think it is India because, see, first of all, China it can't take on US so easily at this point because US, I mean, is still the world's biggest economy and strong country with so many allies and all that. So the next threat to China is, I mean, fundamentally India. The reason I feel that is because, I mean, India is soon going to be third biggest economy, and there is nobody stopping it. Um, India already is fifth biggest economy now after it overtook UK. So it is bound to become third biggest economy, and it is bound to become grow. I mean, it is bound to grow and develop. So what happens when India develops is, see, I mean, we have to understand that CCP, they are controlling their own people, right? And right now, their own people are okay with CCP controlling them because their own people see the development, they have good life, they have good money. So they are okay with not having a little freedom, or, I mean, they're okay to compromise on that. Um, so, I mean, once people see and how they're convincing people there that communism is the best for China is that they show the example of all these democracies, um, and show that, see, I mean, because these countries have democracies, they have so much mess and they have so much corruption, and that is why these countries are not developed and things like that. So when you see what kind of issues they cover, be it US or be it India, you will see all the issues that they cover. I mean, and they show in their countries is all the issues that they can say that these are problem with democracies. Okay, they show poverty in India, they show the riots, the protests and all this that go on in India, to show that, oh, because it is democracy, see, I mean, how the lives of people in India is. I mean, it will happen like one two places in India. India is a huge country, but then it still works for their propaganda, and that's how they showed the Black Lives Matter protest, which happened in US. They showed it in their country, saying, oh, see, I mean, this is what is happening in US, and this is what is happening in democracy. They don't have like they have all these racism issues and all that, you know. So they try to portray saying democracy is not good, communism is the only option, because they don't want democracy to come to China, because they know once democracy comes to China, China will basically collapse, right? I mean, it will basically, then all these demands for different countries, different, like, all these will come up, obviously. So they don't want all that. So they always want to be communists, and obviously the people who are holding power, CCP, like all the higher CCP people who have power, they obviously don't want to lose power. And you know, Xi Jinping has just extended his term for lifelong. So why would they want democracy? I mean, CCP doesn't want democracy, and they don't want people to even ask for democracy. So if you see, the next biggest existential threat that China has is India, because India being a democracy, and everybody knows that India is a very, very complex country, but still we are able to come together being a democracy, and we are able to grow and develop. And I mean, we are able to develop pretty fast. So, and China doesn't want that. If once India develops, people in China will start asking questions. Oh, see, democracy and with such complex nature, they're still growing and things like that. So that's why they don't. I mean, after Taiwan, their, I think their long-term strategy. I mean, 50 years down the line, we all know that China has long-term strategies like 50-year, 100-year strategy. So I think their 50-year or 100-year strategy would be India.
The thing is, like, China had at least 2 decades of head starts in economic liberation in 1970s where Deng Xiaoping was actually convinced Western nations to basically open up opening up the economic zones within China so that other countries can invest in China, make it a manufacturing hub. But India never got to that point, even as a starting point until 1990s, because of P.V. Narasimha Rao, his economic reforms. But the it's not about 2 decades of late head start, it's about the momentum. That was the golden period of time where you can bring in manufacturing. Right now, it's services and it's innovation. But back then, manufacturing was a golden strike iron while it's hot kind of space back then. So Deng
But
Xiaoping,
right now it's all AI though, right? I mean, how much do you see India investing in AI and India encouraging AI? At least,
so you need to have basics before you start in AI. So it's like similar to you need to have a house before you install AC.
Mhm.
So if you buy AC without you owning a house, it doesn't matter. Like you're just carrying the AC on your shoulders forever. It's a simplistic way, but in a way, what I'm trying to say is India needs to have the basics of manufacturing or industrialist economy before we can talk about AI. That's a different topic because India is being IT hub, IT human resources capital of the world, but still it's all slave labor. Like n there's no Twitter, there's no YouTube, there's no Google search alternative in India, but China, with lesser IT ecosystem, was able to manage Baidu Maps, and WeChat, all of stuff. Not only that, China was able to, without non-English speaking disadvantage compared to India, was able to launch TikTok, which was a social media giant who is, which is like growing really in high rate until India banned. But my my main topic is why didn't India do any of even 1%? Can you name one Indian app that is used being in the world right now? Zero.
Yeah, but I would again go back to my point saying Congress has basically tried to sabotage all the um, Indian manufacturing or Indian companies or Indian talent because they actually I think they had an MOU with China. I think that's
Right,
the reason.
right. To be honest, like I would take a extreme position that's saying it's not Congress' fault that Indian public voted for Congress. It's Indian people's fault. They got what they deserve. You vote for someone you think they would make better, they didn't make better, but the responsibility lies in a democracy on you. You voted for them.
Well,
The
that's where okay. I will just make one quick point there, KarnaBro. I think people at that time they basically voted for Congress because there was not much awareness of what's going on in general in the country, and because all the media and all the Lutyens media and all that is controlled by um, Congress. So all that because of that misinformation, people didn't and they say that the economic growth and all that numbers are also fudged and all that. But I mean, let's not get into that. But then all the media, all the information was controlled by Congress, so people actually really didn't know what was going on until I feel until when social media came into picture, and then when people really saw the corruption of Congress, and then they realized that oh, Congress is all about corruption, and they started learning about what Congress is all about, you know. So I think that's where the whole thing shifted from Congress to anti-Congress, and then
right,
Congress automatically started showing its colors. But then my point is, and I mean that is why our podcast is so important because I mean social media is what actually brought awareness to people, and then we are trying to. I mean, if you look at podcasts right now, there is no pro India podcast. I mean, maybe one or two here and there, which actually also doesn't have too many listeners, and that is the reason. I mean, we actually came up with this initiative of starting a podcast and starting to talk about at least pro India and the other, I mean, the anti-India people, I mean, start to expose the anti-India people and then talk about pro-India stuff. That is the reason we have this podcast.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that, but please carry on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Though it's all about propaganda and what you expose. Like, you can't blame some person, a terrorist son who grew up in Syria, who his parent was killed by some kind of Western aircraft, and the only source of his information is the ISIS tabloids. You can't blame him to become a terrorist in the end.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
biggest enemy of Congress in our lifetime is PV Narasimha Rao. That's the reason why they hide, they try to squash PV Narasimha Rao legacy within Congress, Indian National Congress Party. The reason is, imagine there is no other media than Doordarshan, DD, DD News, DD, Doordarshan, another 3, 4 puppet lieutenants media. Then, because of Congress didn't open for private companies, is Indian is like socialist in the name, but communist in the essentially what right now is happening in China. So only Congress approved
Yeah.
news channels, Congress approved newspapers
So
allowed
on
to
that
publish
point,
anything.
sorry to sorry to interrupt you again, KarnaBro. On that point, I wanted to like bring into like one fact that there is this book that is written by P.V. Narasimha Rao. It is called The Insider. I mean, I encourage everybody to read it because that book was written when P.V. Narasimha Rao was there. I mean, when he was alive. And then it is, if you read that book, you will feel like it is a book version of House of Cards. It is, I mean, the whole actual political um, like political scenarios. I mean, you know what House of Cards is, right? So this
Right.
book is exactly what House of Cards is, but it's revolving around P.V. Narasimha Rao's biography and I mean his political career and his political life. So it actually has very good plot. It actually has very good strategies, and just like House of Cards. And this book was written a long time back. So I mean, I encourage everybody to read that.
Yep. So basically, only after India opened up its economy to the world, uh, straddling towards capitalist economy, unlike communist economy. I'm not going to call socialist because socialist at least has some kind of decent accountability, but Indian economy was outright communist. It's not even socialist because unlike Soviet Union, which produced uh, really accountable army manufacturing, India was never able to do it. So my entire point is only after 1990s, yes, Morarji Desai was the prime minister after emergency, and emergency is a black swan event. That's a really rare event. Don't worry about it. Only after Indian common citizens understands a different perspective because of private news channels, private media, they're able to understand, oh shit, this is what Congress is about. They they told us for 50 years they're going to remove poverty, but they never did. They increased the poverty. Vajpayee government was only able to accomplish the Indian government election because of what PV Narasimha Rao did. Because he opened up private companies, which it means that you are allowed to have published private news media. It doesn't matter. It's all about if you get profits, you're successful. And that's when the entire reason why Modi is the president right now, I mean, prime minister right now, is because we have different media. Otherwise, Rahul Gandhi will still be praised as the greatest leader of India forever, just like North Korea. What is the difference between Kim Jong Un and Rahul Gandhi? There's zero difference. If anything, Kim Jong Un might actually have better knowledge and better military information than Rahul Gandhi ever did. So,
And another difference is Kim Jong Un's sister. She's actually pretty smart, but not Rahul Gandhi's.
Yeah, I don't know who's Rahul Gandhi's sister, and I don't care. Why should I care? I know her name is Menaka Gandhi. I'm just kidding. It's Priyanka Gandhi. I know that. But
Priyanka Vada.
Who gives a fuck? Who is she? Like, did she do anything for India? Like, I don't care. She's just as much as Karishma Kapoor for me. It, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm actually insulting Karishma Kapoor because Karishma Kapoor at
Mhm.
least made some movies. She provided some
No,
entertainment to Indian audience.
she's like one tenth of Swara Bhaskar maybe.
Yeah, Swarbaskar, yeah, she's God bless the child. She's in a wrong path. She's too uh, naive, but I don't hate her. India is democracy and has freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want. The final point is, uh, we just had our in economically we got our shit together as a first step in just like 30 years ago. So I hope we get better. Like there are some things that India surprised the world, like IT. No one thought India would become like IT hub. Even though it's a slavery, it's a still non-innovative economy. No one thought just before like an Infosys. Imagine like if you ask anyone in 2008, if you conduct a survey in 1996, that Bangalore would become some kind of economy hub, everyone would have laughed at you. But still, Bangalore is still right now is a kind of world's IT hub. I know it's a still non-innovative, it's a slave labory, but still something's better than nothing. I hopefully India should. It's all about citizens too. It's democracy. You vote who you want. I don't give a shit. But do something better in your personal projects. Like have a personal mission. You work in, I don't know, you selling a tea in a company? I don't know, take a YouTube lesson. You get 64 rupees for GeoSim. Just learn on YouTube how to code. Try to download apps on your phone, how to code and build something. It's all about your thirst. And it's all about how you do it.
I think this was a very good discussion on for our first podcast. I think this is a very good elaborative discussion. And I think we can conclude the podcast, but before that, let's have everybody say a little, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, if you guys want to talk about something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Anish.
So I think I mean we had a really good discussion today, and I mean I'd like to see more of these coming. But like before we conclude, I just want to reach out to you guys and say this because this is a very crucial time for we Indians to have a broader mind of thinking and have a deep understanding of how uh, how our neighboring countries are treating us, and the way we have to act upon, because this is high time, guys. So I think the initiatives towards Nepal, that has to be made by India, and also very good strategic moves have to be taken towards China. So yeah, I mean I like having these discussions and improve my political knowledge all around. So I'm so glad that we had this whole podcast going on. I would love to participate again, for sure. So yeah, thank you.
I like this platform very much. Discussing on the topics on the real-time politics around the world and what we are facing, our country is facing. So everyone is well known, and moreover, I like these guys. It's like for discussing a lot. Usually, we discuss a lot in our phones and our day-to-day lives. So, we came to this platform. It was like this with KarnaBro. He initiated this idea, and this is very good platform to know about the current politics and what the things are going around us in the real world. Yeah, that's it.
Yep, thank you. I feel the same thing too. This is a really good podcast, and I think this is a really good initiative. We all keep talking about all these in our phones and like whenever we meet or whenever we get to talk. But I mean, the idea of making this a podcast is really good because I think this is a very crucial time for each and every common Indian to be aware of what's going on around our country and the politics or the international relations, because India is actually at a very crucial junction at this time, because we are in a brink of war with our neighbors. And at this time, being aware of this scenario and supporting our government is really very important. So I think this podcast will be little helpful in that direction. And thanks to KarnaBro for doing this.
All right. Thanks for listening to this podcast. This is our first episode, and we're just few friends getting together who are pro-Indians, who are patriots, who are nationalists, discussing ideas. And we are not experts like Saurabh Bhaskar, we are not experts like the TV show debate participants. In our own mind, we're just discussing how we can help India in however we want. So go to KarnaSena.com if you want to read our articles and participate in the KarnaSena. And we are just going with the flow. So let's see how it goes. Har Har Mahadev.